Hello, so the idea of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, money that governments and their planners will be able to program, rightly fills many of us with an Orwellian sense of dread. Did you not have the vaccine? Oh, well then you don't qualify for the next payment. Have you been saying wrong things on social media? Then you don't get the good loan rates. We suspect that you might not have paid the right amount of tax. Therefore, we are deducting what we think you owe, and it's up to you to prove otherwise. You want the money back? Please hold. Your call is important to us. And this would all be automated. CBDCs allow for almost unimaginable interference in our lives, intrusions on our privacy and liberty, never mind meddling in the economy. Chinese social credit scores would be just the start of it. And when you combine the instincts of, say, the current British Labour administration to intervene, together with its incompetence, the ramifications are truly horrifying. Some say CBDCs are inevitable. Technology is destiny and all of that. I'm a bit more optimistic, and here is why. First, CBDCs have been piloted in numerous countries, but they've been fully implemented in the Bahamas with the Sand Dollar, in Nigeria with the e-Naira, in Jamaica with the Jamdex, and in the Eastern Caribbean, in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Nowhere has gotten to work. The Bahamas is generally touted as the CBD success story, and I've got a friend, Dave Skarika, who lives there, and he just went, lol, I've never seen one person use it. Why have they failed? People don't use them. When they do use them, they don't work, and so people prefer the legacy systems they know. CBDCs are yet another government IT project that is doomed to fail. Now you might say the internet was a government IT project, and it was in a way. The US government, via a thing called ARPA and later DARPA, provided crucial funding that led to the key development of the internet, especially protocols like TCP/IP. But the internet succeeded because of the immense infrastructure that millions of people, mostly working in their own self-interest, then built over many decades on top of it. Our modern system of debt-based fiat money should long since have imploded under the weight of all the abuse and debasement that successive governments have heaped upon it. But it has survived, indeed it's even thrived as a medium of exchange, albeit a terrible store of wealth, because of the incredible fintech architecture that has been built on top of it. Again, by millions of people over many decades, mostly acting in their own self-interest. In fact, that architecture is probably what has saved the system. Fiat money is it's promissory. And worse than that, it's a promise of something that isn't even there. But the incredible advances in communication technology that we've seen over the last 150 years, telecommunications, digital technology, all the rest of it, have all enabled the sending and recording of these promises. Communication is just incredible, and the fortunes that have been invested have all helped the system evolve, and indeed they've actually preserved it. So fiat money worked initially as countries gradually abandoned gold standards over the course of the 20th century because they were the only currencies that citizens knew. The payment and saving infrastructure was already built, and it was normal to people. The coins and notes and checks and bank accounts, they all functioned perfectly well. And there were no alternatives. And the removal of the gold backing, it didn't really impact the overall architecture. So the system could carry on. Indeed, government currencies worked in the first place because they were based on gold and silver, which everybody already knew, used, and instinctively knew had value. So when they weren't debasing their money, rulers or those working for them, they often actually improved the system. The invention of coinage, for example, certified the amount of precious metal in a coin, and the ruler's stamp legitimised it. So money, currency, was based on something people already knew and used and understood. Not so CBDCs. They have no existing infrastructure around them, nor is their use normal. And governments aren't going to be able to design anything decent. They'll need the private sector to do that, and that will take many years, perhaps decades, before it gets as good as the infrastructure around existing payment systems. It would also take many years and lots of nudges for people to change their habits, loads of behavioural economics. The private sector's not going to invest the required amount of money in payment systems if people aren't going to use them. So you'll end up with a situation, a bit like green energy, where governments will have to spend billions subsidising it in order to make it work. But the actual energy you get is not as good as that provided by fossil fuels, the existing system. It's unreliable, it's more expensive, it's more damaging to the environment. There will not be the same green arguments, 10 years to save the planet and all of that, to justify the spending on CBDCs. The scope for corruption and crony capitalism will be enormous again. None of this is going to stop governments trying it, of course, and citizens might slowly start to use the system, particularly if they get free handouts. But it will be a long time before CBDCs reach a level where they compete with existing payment systems. And at this point, fiat money, as we now know it, probably won't exist anyway. We tend to forget, but most nations, as we currently know them, are only about 200 years old. Many will not exist in 50 or 100 years' time. They'll go bankrupt. Most of them are already bankrupt, and they'll break apart. What's going to happen to their money? It's not going to exist. There is the possibility of demanding that taxes are paid in CBDCs, I suppose, but again, this opens up so much scope for outcry, waste, inefficiency, I just cannot see it working. One of the golden rules about taxation, the money has to be easy to collect. So people within the blob, they look at Bitcoin and they admire it and they think they can copy it. But even Bitcoin is what it is, not so much because of Satoshi Nakamoto's genius invention, but because of the way hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in the free market embraced it and built on top of it and built an architecture around it. And the reason they did was, again, self-interest. The value of Bitcoin kept going up. So every bit of Bitcoin fintech, every podcast, every tweet, every transaction, every little bit of mining, they all help the Bitcoin price. And so it's a colossal open source contribution and movement. There is not the same incentive with CBDCs. Their value is never going to go up. Quite the opposite. Their value will fall as governments issue more and more of them. So there is not the same incentive. To have any chance of working, CBDCs will require billions and billions of subsidy, and most governments do not have the resources. They are already bankrupt. They will struggle to justify the expense. Health or welfare or pensions or something will be deemed more important. Plus, they will meet with huge resistance from freedom fighters, and probably the media as well. As I say, none of this will stop them trying, but on this issue at least, you can sleep soundly. CBDCs are one Orwellian nightmare that is not going to work. They will end up yet another failed government IT project. And anyone from the future look back at this little vlog and marvel at my foresight. Thank you very much for being a subscriber to this channel. Please subscribe if you aren't already a subscriber. Please post your comments below, hit the like button, all that stuff. Until next time, goodbye.